My wife got pregnant and lied about it being mine so. I waited until birth, ordered a test, and left her in front of her whole family. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and for most of my adult life, I truly believed I had won the lottery in love. My wife Olivia wasn't just beautiful, she had this magnetic charm that pulled people in effortlessly. She could light up a room with one laugh and turn any stranger into a friend within minutes. I used to watch her at parties, telling stories with a glass of wine in her hand, and feel this stupid pride swell in my chest. That's my wife, I'd think. That's the woman who chose me. We met back in high school. I was the quiet kid who stayed after class to help teachers stack chairs, and she was the yearbook editor with a sharp wit and 1,000-watt smile. Somehow, she noticed me. Somehow, we stuck. We got married young, built a tiny apartment into a cozy home, and weathered all the typical storms: job losses, family drama, tight budgets. But through it all, we were that couple, the one everyone else envied. People would say things like, "You two are such a perfect match," or "You give me hope that real love exists." I'd eat those compliments up like candy. Not knowing that sugar has a bitter aftertaste, the cracks didn't show up overnight. It was slow, like a hairline fracture in glass that keeps spreading until the whole thing shatters. I told myself it was stress. Maybe work was getting to her. Maybe we were just in a rut. I didn't want to believe something was wrong, but deep down, I felt it. Something was off. She'd smile, but it wouldn't reach her eyes. She'd hold my hand, but only when people were watching. I didn't know it then, but I was already losing her, and I had no idea just how much she'd already taken. It started out innocent enough, just a passing comment while watching a friend's baby shower video. "We'd make such cute kids," Olivia said, resting her head on my shoulder. I smiled, nodded, said something generic like, "Yeah." One day, I thought that was the end of it. It WASN, single quotes, within a week. She'd bought a new planner titled Baby Goals 2023. Then came the ovulation apps, the sudden switch to prenatal vitamins, the organic food obsession. She brought up kids every single day. At breakfast, at bedtime, even during sex. "Wouldn't it be crazy if this time took," she whispered once in the dark, her breath hot against my ear. I laughed it off back then. We'd always said we'd have kids eventually, and I figured maybe her clock was just ticking louder these days. But something felt ... urgent, forced, like she was working against a deadline I hadn't been told about. I didn't want to be the guy who says no to a family. I loved her. If this was what she wanted, I wanted it too. Eventually, but it was like she didn't care whether I was ready or not. She just needed me on board enough to not ask questions. And the strangest part, for someone so eager to get pregnant, she didn't seem particularly connected to me. There were no long talks about parenting, no bonding moments imagining names or schools, just this mechanical, clinical urgency. It felt less like we were planning a child and more like she was trying to check off a box. Or hide something. At that point, I still thought maybe I was just over, but some part of me, the quieter, more paranoid version of me started, whispering that maybe this baby wasn't about us at all. The morning she showed me the test, she came flying out of the bathroom like she'd won the lottery, tears in her eyes, pregnancy stick shaking in her hand. She said, "It's positive. We're having a baby." Then she just collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I wrapped my arms around her and said all the right things. "Wow, really? That's amazing. I can't believe it." But the truth is, something didn't feel right. It wasn't that I wasn't happy. It's just timing. We hadn't been intimate much that month. Between work stress, late nights, and just feeling distant lately, we'd only been together once in the last 6 weeks, and yet she was suddenly pregnant. I felt my stomach turn, but I smiled anyway. "Are you sure?" I asked gently. She pulled back with a scowl. "You think I don't know how to read a pregnancy test?" she snapped. I stammered, said something about taking another test to confirm, but she cut me off. "Why are you trying to ruin this moment?" And just like that, I became the bad guy. Again, later that night, after she fell asleep, I sat in the living room, staring at the test she left on the counter. I Googled the brand. I checked reviews. I even searched how often do false positives happen. I wasn't proud of myself. I felt like a traitor for even doubting her. But something inside me, something instinctual, kept ringing alarm bells. I didn't say anything more. I congratulated her. I kissed her forehead. I promised I'd be the best dad I could be. But as I lay beside her in bed, staring at the ceiling, one question echoed in my head louder than anything else. What if this baby isn't mine? We went in for her first ultrasound 3 weeks later. The nurse smiled, pointed at the screen, and said, "Based on the measurements, looks like you're about 8 weeks along." Olivia squeezed my hand and beamed. I nodded, smiled back, but my mind was already racing. 8 weeks. I did the math quietly in my head, like I was trying to solve a puzzle no one else could see. 8 weeks ago, we hadn't even touched each other. I remembered clearly I was out of town for a client pitch and came back exhausted. We barely spoke that week, let alone had sex. The timing didn't add up, not unless biology had started bending to lies. Later in the car, I asked casually, "Hey, you remember when we, tried? I just want to make sure I've got the dates right." She didn't hesitate. "Of course I do," she said, then rattled off a weekend that wasn't 8 weeks ago, it was more like 5. I stared out the window, heart pounding. She either forgot, or she was testing me to see if I would forget. Maybe the ultrasound's off by a week or 2. That happens sometimes. Her tone was light, but her eyes were locked on me in the rearview mirror, like she knew I was trying to piece something together, and that's when I felt that subtle shift, like I was no longer her partner, but an obstacle to manage, someone to keep pacified until her version of reality stuck. I didn't push. I told her it was probably nothing, and we changed the subject. But that night, I marked the calendar, counted the days again and again. No matter how I tried to spin it, the numbers never worked in my favor. It was a Saturday night when the cracks started to widen, just wide enough for the truth to start leaking through. Olivia had invited a few of her girlfriends over for wine and movies. I usually gave them space when they had these nights, but this time I stayed a little longer, pretending to look for a charger in the living room drawer. That's when I heard it. One of her friends, Alyssa, I think, said, "I still can't believe you got away with it." Laughter followed, nervous, high-pitched, the kind that stumbles out too fast when someone realizes they've said too much. I froze behind the kitchen wall, not moving, not breathing. Another voice, Morena, chimed in. "Girl, if he ever finds out." Olivia cut her off. "He won't. He's not like that. He's trusting." Then someone mumbled something I couldn't catch, and they all erupted in forced giggles. I felt a weird pressure in my chest, like someone had just sat on my lungs. I walked in casually a few minutes later, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. The room fell silent the moment they saw me. Eyes widened. Wineglasses paused midair. "Hey," I said, smiling. "Didn't mean to crash your party. Just looking for my charger." Olivia gave me a tight-lipped smile. "It's probably in the bedroom." The rest of the night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying their voices in my head. If he ever finds out, you got away with it. What the hell was I not supposed to find out? I didn't have proof, but I had suspicion, solid, ugly suspicion. And once that door cracked open, my brain didn't know how to shut it. A week after the girls' night, I offered to go with Olivia to her next prenatal appointment. She paused, just for a second, but long enough to notice. Then she smiled and said, "Ah, babe, that's sweet, but you'll be bored." "It's just routine," I insisted. She dodged. "I'll FaceTime you," she promised. "You can still hear the heartbeat and everything." That sounded reasonable, but it didn't feel reasonable, especially not after what I'd overheard. The next appointment came. No call, no fit. I waited in the office, phone in hand, until it was clear she wasn't going to reach out. When she got home, she acted like nothing was wrong, said she forgot, blamed the nurses for running late. I asked how it went. She said, "Fine, no details, no photos, no baby talk." So I tried something. The following week, I called the clinic myself and asked if I could get a summary of the visit. I expected the usual, "sorry, privacy laws" speech, but what I didn't expect was the receptionist saying, there was no appointment this week. It was rescheduled for next Friday. I hung up and just sat there, staring at nothing. That's when it hit me. She was avoiding letting me see something, or someone. Whatever she was hiding, it had to be visible, obvious, physical, like a scar she couldn't cover fast enough. That night, I didn't confront her. I acted normal. I cooked dinner. We watched Netflix. She leaned her head on my chest like everything was fine. and I laid their hand on her growing belly, wondering if I was comforting a stranger's child. I still didn't have proof, but I knew I was close. I just had to wait for the right moment to trap the lie in daylight. I remember lying awake one night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, if she's lying, there's only one moment I can catch her without warning. The delivery. That's when I started building a plan. Quietly, carefully, no confrontation, no outbursts, just a single surgical move when the time was right. First, I called a lawyer. Not to file anything, just to understand what I could do. He told me, as the legal husband, I had the right to request a paternity test after birth. I didn't need her permission. I didn't even have to tell her I was doing it. That was all I needed to hear. I went online and ordered 2 different at-home paternity test kits, one as a backup. I shipped them to my office, not our home. I even created a folder in my email marked work receipts and hid all the confirmations in there. Paranoia changes you, makes you cautious, makes you smarter. I spent the next few weeks acting like the excited dad-to-be. Baby showers, crib building, smiling for Instagram posts. Every picture she posted of us holding hands, every #blessed caption, made my stomach turn. But I kept playing the role. I knew I'd only get one shot at this. And if I messed it up, if I accused her before I had proof, she'd flip the narrative on me so fast, I wouldn't even have time to defend myself. So I smiled. I waited. I practiced the line I'd say to the nurse after the birth. I'd like to request a paternity test, please, privately. And every night, I'd go to sleep next to her, heart thudding in my chest like a ticking bomb. The countdown had already started, and the closer we got to her due date, the more I prayed I was wrong. The delivery room was a blur of lights, voices, beeping machines, and that strange sterile scent hospitals always carry. I held Olivia's hand as she screamed through the final pushes. Sweat dripped from her forehead, and she clutched me like I was the only solid thing left in her world. For a second, just a second, I almost believed in us again. Then the baby came out. There was this silence, just for a heartbeat. Then a cry, sharp, raw, beautiful. The doctor held up our daughter and said, "She's perfect." I looked, and everything inside me shifted. She was beautiful, no doubt. But she didn't look like me at all. Now I know genetics are weird. Babies change, features develop, but this was different. Her skin tone leaned several shades deeper than either mine or Olivia's. Her eyes had a shape I'd never seen in my family or Olivia's. For that matter, the nurse even joked, "She's got some strong genes from Mom's side, huh?" Olivia laughed, too quickly, too loudly, like she was trying to cover something. I held the baby. She was so small, so warm, her fingers barely curling around mine. And yet, I felt a distance, a wall, not from her, but from the lie standing beside me. I looked over at Olivia, who was staring at me too intently, waiting for my reaction. I forced a smile. "She's perfect," I whispered. She nodded, tears in her eyes, but not the right kind, not the pure kind. That night, while Olivia slept in her hospital bed and the baby rested in the bassinet, I walked down the hall holding my phone. I called the private lab. "Hi, yes, I'm ready to proceed with the test." Tomorrow morning, the time for wondering was over. Now, I was going to know. The hospital room was dark, except for the faint blue glow from the hallway. Olivia was out cold finally, after a long night of pain meds and exhaustion. She looked peaceful, almost innocent, as she lay curled up on her side, her arms tucked under the blanket. The baby was in the bassinet, wrapped in a pink and white blanket, her tiny chest rising and falling like she had no idea what kind of storm had been born around her. I waited a few more minutes to make sure Olivia was really asleep. Then I slid out of the recliner chair as quietly as I could and knelt by the bassinet. My hands were trembling, not because I was scared of being caught, but because I hated that it had come to this, that I was about to perform a paternity test on my own child. While my wife slept 10 feet away, I opened the test kit silent, methodical. I swabbed the inside of the baby's cheek gently, whispering an apology she'd never understand. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. This isn't your fault." I sealed the swab, placed it into the vial, and hid the whole kit inside the lining of my laptop bag. Then I sat back down, wiped the sweat off my palms, and stared at the ceiling for the rest of the night. My heart felt like it was caught between two realities, one where I was just being paranoid, and one where I was standing on the edge of everything I thought I knew in the morning. While Olivia was in the shower, I told the nurse I needed to step out to make a quick call. I took a cab to the nearest post office, paid for next day shipping to the lab, and sent it off. No turning back now. I walked back into that room, kissed Olivia on the forehead, and held the baby like she was mine. But inside, I knew the truth was already on its way. The email came 3 days later while I was in the office. Subject line, paternity test results ready. I sat frozen at my desk, staring at the screen like it was a live bomb. My palms were sweaty. My throat was dry. My whole body felt like it didn't belong to me, but I clicked it. I opened the PDF and scrolled straight to the results section. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. There it was. Clear, undeniable, in bold letters. I wasn't the father. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there in silence as the room seemed to stretch and twist around me. But then I noticed something else at the bottom of the report. In the optional metadata section, it listed the biological father's name. My lawyer had said the lab might include this if the DNA was already in their database for cross-reference or custody reasons. Derek W. My stomach dropped. Derek wasn't just anyone. He was my former coworker. The same guy Olivia always said was harmless and kind of annoying. The same guy I had invited into our home for barbecues. The guy who had once crashed on our couch after a bad breakup. I even remembered Olivia comforting him back then, saying he just needed someone to believe in him. I thought she was being kind. Turns out, she was just being consistent. I stared at that name for a long time. Derek suddenly. Every little moment, every laugh they shared, every private joke I didn't get, every subtle glance snapped into focus like pieces of a broken mirror fitting together. I closed the file. Took a deep breath. I knew exactly what I had to do next. Olivia wanted to throw a dinner party. The week we got back from the hospital said it was to introduce our daughter to the family. I told her it was too soon, that we were exhausted, but she insisted. It'll mean so much to our parents, she said, rubbing my shoulder like she hadn't just shattered my entire world. I agreed, smiled, said it sounded like a beautiful idea. And inside, I started preparing for war. I went to a print shop the next day. I handed them the test results and asked for 5 clean copies in crisp black and white printed on thick paper. I had each one folded and sealed in a labeled envelope. 2, Olivia's parents. 2, my parents. 2, Olivia. Mine stayed in my pocket. The dinner was set for Saturday. Her parents arrived first, cheerful, wine in hand, gushing over their granddaughter. My parents came next, a little more reserved but warm. We sat around the dining table, candles lit, soft music playing in the background. Olivia cradling the baby like she'd birthed truth itself. She looked at me across the table and mouthed, "Thank you for this." And I smiled. We ate. We talked. We passed the baby around. Olivia kept her arm looped through mine like we were the perfect team. But I couldn't even feel her touch anymore. When dessert was served, I stood up and tapped my glass. Everyone quieted. "I have something I'd like to give each of you," I said, pulling out the stack of envelopes. I walked around the table, handing them out slowly, one by one. Olivia furrowed her brow. "What is this?" Asterisk. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "The truth? There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like the moment before a car crash." That's what filled the room when everyone looked down at the envelopes in their hands. Olivia stared at hers like it was a grenade. Her mother looked confused. My dad squinted at the label. "Go ahead," I said softly. "You can open them." The sound of tearing paper felt louder than the music still humming in the background. For a moment, no one said anything, just eyes scanning words. Then her father spoke first. "What is this supposed to mean?" Olivia hadn't opened hers yet. Her hands were shaking. She looked at me across the table, face pale, lips parting to speak, but nothing came out. So I spoke for her. "It's a paternity test. I took it the day after the baby was born." My mom gasped. Her eyes flicked to Olivia, then back to me. I continued, steady and cold. "The baby is not mine. And the father is someone named Derek W., a name you might recognize." Olivia's face crumpled like paper set on fire. No, That's not," she started, but her voice caught in her throat. Her mother stood up. "Olivia, is this true?" Silence. "Is it true?" her father barked, rising to his feet. Still nothing, just tears rolling down her cheeks, her mouth opening and closing like she was drowning in the very lies she thought she could control. The baby started crying. Sensing the shift in the room, my sister got up and gently took her into the other room. Everyone else just stared at me, at Olivia. At the wreckage lying in the middle of the table, "I didn't want to do this here," I said. But I wasn't going to let the lie live longer than it already has. Olivia finally whispered, "I made a mistake." I looked right at her and said, "No, you made a choice." The silence that followed my words was deafening, like the whole room had lost its ability to breathe. Olivia's father dropped the envelope on the table as if it burned him. "You cheated on your husband, had a baby with another man, and let all of us believe this was his child." She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. Her hands trembled in her lap. Her cheeks were soaked now, but not a single word of denial crossed her lips. "Say something," her mother begged. "Please, Liv. Tell me this isn't what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. "I didn't plan it," Olivia whispered finally. "It just happened. I panicked. I thought I could fix it, make it go away." "You thought a baby would make it go away?" my father shot back, his voice rising. "Are you insane?" I didn't interrupt. I didn't need to. The truth had already detonated, and the damage was doing its own work. My mother looked at me heartbroken, protective. "Are you okay?" She mouthed silently. I nodded. "Barely, Dot?" Olivia finally stood, wobbling slightly, like the ground beneath her had turned to glass. "I didn't want to lose you," she said, looking at me with eyes full of regret I couldn't trust. I was scared. "I made a mistake. But I love you. I love you." I stared at her for a long time. At the woman I once thought I'd grow old with. "I loved you too," I said quietly. "But love without truth is just manipulation in a prettier dress." The room went still again, her voice breaking. But it didn't matter anymore. I pushed my chair back, stood up, and walked around the table one last time, not toward her. Toward the door she didn't follow. She couldn't. I didn't take the leftover dessert. I didn't take the baby photos. I didn't even take the jacket Olivia had bought me for Christmas. I just took my keys, my silence, and whatever pieces of my heart still worked. As I walked out of that house, I felt this strange mix of numbness and clarity, like I'd just woken up from the longest, cruelest dream. The cool air outside hit my face like a slap. It was the first real thing I'd felt in weeks. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before starting the engine, not crying, not yelling, just breathing. Breathing without lies pressing down on my chest. That night, I checked into a hotel 2 towns over. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, not even my parents. I needed space. I needed silence. I needed to remember who I was before Olivia's betrayal rewrote my reflection. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney. Adultery. Paternity fraud. "I have documents to support it," I said. The woman on the other end of the phone paused, then said gently, "You're doing the right thing. Let's get started." Olivia called me 23 times that day. She texted long, pleading paragraphs, sent voice notes, left voicemails crying, begging for one more conversation. I didn't respond. What was left to say? By the 3rd day, she showed up at my hotel. She knocked on the door and said through the wood, "We can fix this. Please, I'll do anything. Don't leave me." I didn't open it. I stood on the other side, with my hand on the knob, listening to her cry, just like I had cried alone in our bathroom after reading that test result. But I didn't hate her. I just didn't believe her anymore, and that was enough to walk away. 2 weeks after I filed for divorce, Olivia posted a photo of our daughter on Instagram with the caption, "Sometimes life doesn't go as planned, but love is always worth fighting for. #forgiveness, #new beginnings." I stared at my screen in disbelief. No mention of what she had done. No accountability. Just vague language wrapped in victimhood. Lighting dot, she turned off comments within minutes, but it didn't stop people from talking. Cousin Bless, her posted the paternity test results in a private Facebook group that Olivia's entire family followed. It leaked fast. Screenshots were everywhere. Text threads lit up. People I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me asking, "Is this real?" Derek's wife, yeah. Turns out he was married to, filed for divorce within 48 hours of seeing the proof. She left him with a single sentence on her socials. He deserves Olivia, and Olivia deserves him. Olivia tried damage control. She called her infidelity a moment of weakness and said, "I was handling things with unnecessary cruelty," but no one was buying it. Because you can't plead for sympathy when you've built your story on someone. Elsa's destruction, her reputation cracked then crumbled, friends distanced themselves. Her own father stopped returning her calls. I heard she got written up at work for inappropriate personal behavior, affecting professional trust. She moved back in with her mother temporarily, she claimed. But I knew better. And me. I stayed quiet. No interviews. No public posts. No revenge campaign. The truth didn't need my help. Had already done the heavy lifting. And the irony? The only thing Olivia couldn't manipulate was a strand of DNA. I didn't rejoice in her downfall. I didn't need to, because peace isn't loud. It's silent. And I was finally starting to hear it again. If you're reading this and you've ever felt like something was off even when everyone told you you were paranoid, please hear me. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You're not insecure. You're not too sensitive. You're sensing something real that someone else is trying very hard to keep hidden. I spent months gaslighting myself, telling myself I was imagining things, making excuses for the woman I loved. I thought if I loved her enough, it would all make sense. That my doubt would fade. That my gut was wrong, but your gut doesn't lie. People do. What hurts the most isn't the betrayal itself. It's the time you wasted defending someone who was quietly tearing you apart. It's the nights you stayed up wondering what you did wrong. The apologies you made just to keep peace in a war you didn't start. I'm not broken. I'm not bitter. But I'm not the same. I've learned that love without honesty is just a performance. I've learned that forgiveness is not owed, it's earned. And I've learned that silence, when rooted in dignity, is louder than any revenge. So if you're in a relationship where your reality is constantly questioned, if you find yourself shrinking to keep someone else comfortable, if your truth feels heavier than their lies ever did, walk away, even if it hurts, even if it's messy, even if it means starting from zero. Because freedom doesn't come with applause. It comes in quiet moments, when you wake up and realize you don't have to explain yourself anymore. I'll never get back the years I gave to someone who saw me as disposable. But I have the rest of my life to build something honest, and that's worth everything.